may be short committee members here as folks are making their way back to the Capitol, and I do know that Senator Pavley will be out today. She is representing the state at a hearing back in Washington, D.C., I believe. So we thank her for that. But we are expecting all 6 of our other members to be with us. A few will be arriving from other parts of the state a little later. But with the cooperation and consent of our Republican colleagues, which we appreciate, we'll be working as a subcommittee, and then obviously not taking up matters for a motion or a vote until we've established a quorum. And we're going to wait until 10:30 sharp so that we are following the rules of the Senate and consistent with the publicly noticed time. And it now being 10:30, let's ask our first author to step up to the table. That would be Assemblymember Dickinson. Assemblymember, welcome. You are here with AB 146. I believe that's your only item today. Is that correct?
As far as I know.
That is our item number 2. And why don't we ask you to go ahead and present the bill.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to present AB 146. And I would just say at the outset, the analysis points out some technical and chaptering out amendments that are recommended, and I'm more than happy to accept those as author's amendments. AB 146.
Excuse the interruption, and just to be clear, those are as identified on comments 4 and 5. That's correct?
Let me just turn the page, and I believe that is yes, 4 and 5.
4 and 5. All right,
on
thank you.
Page 4 of the analysis. Yes.
Please proceed.
AB 146 increases the membership of the California Air Resources Board from 11 to 13 members. The 12th member would be chosen from one of the 5 local air districts comprising the federally designated Sacramento non-attainment region, and the 13th member would be a climate change expert. I might just note that as much as 80% of the ozone formation elements in the Sacramento non-attainment area come out of the tailpipe, so mobile sources are clearly crucial to our ability to meet our air quality requirements. And the Sacramento non-attainment area is, in fact, the largest metropolitan area not represented on the Air Resources Board. The bill is supported by the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, Breathe California, the American Lung Association, as well as the Sacramento Air Quality Management District. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I will keep it short and respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you very much. I'm not aware of any opposition. Let me just check in the room. Is there any opposition to the bill before we ask for your support witnesses? All right. The chair is prepared to recommend an aye vote as amended. There is no opposition. I know your support witnesses will keep that in mind as they offer their testimony. Please.
Larry Green, Sacramento Air Quality Management Districts, recommend support.
Jack Molodanoff on behalf of the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. We're in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that short enough?
That was crisp. That was very good. That was crisp. And compelling, by the way. Are there any other witnesses in support? Any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? All right. Seeing and hearing none, no witnesses in opposition, then we'll say thank you. As I mentioned earlier, we're working as a subcommittee at this time. Once we have established a quorum, I will go back and ask for motions, and we will vote on each item once a quorum has been established. All right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you once again. All right. And by the way, before we call up our next author, which will be Assemblymember Amiano, we have had 2 items that were pulled from the file. Item number 1, AB 135 by Assemblymember Hagman, and item 12, AB 938, V. Manuel Perez. Both of these were pulled from today's agenda at the request of the author. Assemblymember Amiano, please join us.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Mr. Chair and members, AB 209 makes a minor change to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, review and notification process that will make it more convenient and environmentally friendly by notifying state agencies and individuals of the public of where to obtain an electronic version of the environmental report. Under current CEQA law, lead agencies are required to provide public notice regarding the date, time, and location of public hearings on the proposed project, a description of the project and its potential effects, and the address of where public agencies or individuals can obtain a hard copy of the impact report and all of its supporting demands and documents. However, current law does not require lead agencies to notify the public or public agencies where they can be provided with an electronic form. According to the California State Clearinghouse, environmental reports can range anywhere from 2 pages to several thousand pages, with large reports with upwards of even more. It is more convenient and environmentally sound to notify the stakeholders of how to obtain an electronic version, and by notifying the public as to how they can be provided with an electronic version of the EIR, Assembly Bill 209 makes CEQA review and comment process more environmentally friendly, provides greater convenience to the public, and allows for greater transparency to the public on potential environmental effects of developmental projects. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Do you have witnesses in support?
No.
No?
No, I don't.
Are there witnesses in opposition? None. All right. The chair is prepared to recommend an aye vote, and there is no opposition. And I think it's a helpful little bill. Good for you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Assemblymember Olkowski.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. And for those who are arriving, we're working as a subcommittee, and once we establish a quorum, we'll go back and pick up the members that we've heard, the items that we've heard, and take action. And I know the Sergeant at Arms is calling the absent members. Yes? Thank you very much. Assemblymember, your first item is AB 246.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This measure corrects an anomaly in state law that prevents regional water quality control boards from referring cases to district attorneys and city attorneys. Under the current law, for civil cases involving violations of Porter-Cologne Act, only the Attorney General can act on behalf of the water boards. District attorneys and city attorneys can be referred cases that involve criminal violations of the Porter-Cologne Act, but not the civil matters. As a result of this limitation on prosecution authority, many cases that would be brought to enforce violations under the Water Code are never filed. District attorneys and civil and city attorneys routinely handle complex cases and violations regarding oil spills, fish and game protection, conservation law, hazardous material violations, air pollution, violations of the Forest Practices Act. There's no reason why district attorneys should not be able to prosecute violations under Porter-Cologne, and this bill will improve the enforcement against polluters and protect water quality, and I urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association. We're supporting this bill. We look at it as more of a conformity measure. There are several other statutes, as the Assembly member stated, where district attorneys have civil prosecution authority, and he noted those quite well. We think this bill eases government bureaucracy and makes existing processes more efficient. What we find most of the time in these examples is that a DA will get a case referred to them by a water board that appears to be criminal in nature. And when the DA does some investigation, it will be revealed that this may not be an appropriate case to pursue criminally. However, there might be civil liability that it's more appropriate to pursue. And in that case, district attorneys are not permitted under current law to sort of switch gears and take a civil route. And so what happens is we have to refer that case back to the board, and then they decide if they want to refer it to the Attorney General's office for further action. District attorneys have experience with all kinds of complex litigation, criminal and civil, and they're trusted to use their discretion in these matters, and it's unclear why this type of prosecution is more complex than any other thing that DAs do. CDAA has a circuit prosecutor program that leads technical support and does cases in counties where they don't potentially have this experience, and so for all those reasons, we'd ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Good morning. Ken Pogue for the Attorney General. We support this legislation. It will streamline and make more efficient the prosecution of civil Port of Cologne cases, and for that reason, we're appreciative of the author and CDA for working with us on this.
Thank you very much. Are there any other witnesses in support? And this would be a good time for me to mention I'd like to just do 2 witnesses for a couple minutes each on both support and oppose. If there's really something that requires a little more in-depth conversation, we'll be happy to entertain that, but that ought to be the exception, not the rule. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, committee members, Jim Metropolis for the Sierra Club. We're also in support of AB 246. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Welcome.
Morning, Chair and staff. Danny Merkley with the California Farm Bureau. We have discussed our concerns with the author's office several times. The author has offered to work on one aspect, but we still have additional concerns remaining. Those concerns are the inconsistency among 58 different district attorneys, the wide range of expertise that we have seen over the years with these types of complex cases. When it comes to the criminal actions, they're assisted by the Environmental Circuit Prosecutors Project, which was actually put in place in 2001 by a bill sponsored by the District Attorneys Association. And there's no such mechanism for that type of assistance with civil cases.
Mr. Chairman and members, Mike Dillon representing the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. We feel the current law provides a robust, fair, and timely enforcement program. Our 2 major concerns are shifting the authority to apply for the additional enforcement from the regional boards to the executive officer. Our members occasionally find executive officers to be quite unreasonable, and we think having the appointed regional boards involved in the process is critical. And then Mr. Merkley's point that over the years we found consistency of enforcement with the Attorney General's office, and there are experts in there who specialize in just these programs, and we think having 58 different district attorneys involved is just not going to be as consistent as the current process. So for that reason, we're opposed.
Mr. Dillon, could you take a moment, or perhaps the author can help, to identify in the bill where the language that concerns you about the executive officers is placed? Maybe staff can have a question. Where's the language on executive officers? And Senator Lowenthal, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have taken up measures by Assemblymember Dickinson and Amiano, and this is the first of Assemblymember Wachowski's 3 bills before us today. Assemblymember?
Mr. Chairman, point number 5 on the analysis, I think, refers to what I was.
Assemblymember, do you know where that language is in your bill?
I didn't bring a copy of it. I just grabbed my packet. It is in the bill. That's the purpose. It doesn't preclude any board from holding a public hearing on whether they should employ the district attorney. It just allows the executive officer, if there's a polluter, to take that action, as it does in other environmental laws that we have in the state. This is nothing exceptional. It's not some new power that we're giving folks or the executive director.
Well, let's take a minute and find the language. If this is an issue, I'd like to understand what the issue is more fully.
Okay, I'm looking at the original version. I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
Let's see, Mr. Chairman, I went back to the original version. Section 113.223, number C, B.
Now I'm well and truly lost. Working from the version of the bill that was amended in the Assembly March 29th, 2011. Are we talking about the language that's on page 5 that says a petition may be brought pursuant to this paragraph only after the Attorney General approves a request by the State Board? No, I think
No.
we're talking about the executive officer language.
Yes.
Say again?
17.
Yeah.
Page 2, line 17, commencing January 1st, 2012, a regional board may also delegate to its executive officer the authority to apply for judicial enforcement to the Attorney General, a district attorney, a city attorney. So is the concern the authority that's granted there, Mr. Dillon? Is that what we're talking about? All right. And Assemblymember Wachowski, your point, as I understand it, is that while the board is delegating its authority to the executive officer, that the authority is only to apply for judicial enforcement to the Attorney General, the district attorney, or a city attorney. Yes?
Right, and water boards have a unique hurdle that they have to go over of having the hearing. So, having a hearing versus there's an infraction, the executive officer says, we want to get the district attorney to come in and to
All right.
prosecute. It doesn't preclude. I see it as both of them being proceeding.
Got it. All right, let's do this. Members, if we could call the roll and establish a quorum. Now that we have a quorum established, please.
Senator Simidian?
Here.
Strickland? Here. Blakesley? Hancock? Kehoe? Lowenthal? Pavley?
Quorum has been established. I'm going to thank the witnesses who are here. I'm going to ask other witnesses to step forward and offer their comments briefly. A sentence or two, given the brevity of the earlier comments, is just fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Cindy Tuck with the Association of California Water Agencies. On this point about the delegation to the regional board, the concern is if the decision is made by the regional board itself, there's a public hearing on that decision. If the authority is delegated to the executive officer, you don't have that public hearing where the decision is made. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Crystal Jack on behalf of Western Plant Health Association, also in opposition for the reasons previously stated.
Thank you. Anybody else in opposition? All right. If not, then Assemblymember, it's back to you.
Well, I guess I would just say you don't have this authority at the airport. You don't have this authority at the Fish and Game. The requirement that it goes to a public hearing before an action can be taken by the executive. So we're trying to, for polluters, there has to be an incident. We're trying to balance off the law. This is something that was brought to me by. It was in the water quality improvement recommendations, and I would urge members to vote aye.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions from committee members? And if not, Senator Lowenthal, this would be an appropriate time for a motion.
I've made that motion.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so now that we have established a quorum, we have a do pass motion from Senator Lowenthal. Any other comments or questions before we go to a vote on the item, members? If not, please call the roll.
Senator Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye. Strickland? No. Strickland, no. Blakesley? No. Blakesley, no. Hancock? Kehoe? Lowenthal? Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
Vote on that is 2-2. We will hold the roll open for absent members. And as I mentioned earlier, Senator Pavley is gone today. So we're working with 6 members on the committee. Assemblymember, let's go on to your next item, which is Agenda Item 5, AB 255. Go ahead and present.
Yes, members and Chair, this is a straightforward bill that allows California's extensive network of household hazardous waste facilities to accept and recycle larger amounts of latex paint from businesses. This bill would lift the 100-kilogram limit on accepting latex paint. That's basically 22 gallons. The bill reduces some of the regulatory barriers to serving the small business community that needs to dispose of latex paint. It allows for the consolidation of larger volumes of paint before disposal. This will result in higher disposal limits and less paperwork for small business customers. AB 255 utilizes the existing infrastructure of household hazardous waste small business programs more efficiently. This bill has been amended to remove the authority for household hazardous waste facilities to impose an additional charge. There is no known opposition to the bill.
All right. Witnesses in support?
Mr. Chair, Justin Milan on behalf of StopWaste.org, the Alameda County Waste Management Authority. We sponsors of the bill and thank the author for carrying it for us. It's a common sense measure. It's going to reduce some of the paperwork without in any way jeopardizing public health and safety. And we think that this complements well with the bill that was passed last year to encourage the recycling and the recovery of used paint. We urge your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support?
Good morning. Monica Jansen with Sierra Club California in support.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Bill appears to be in good shape, Assembly Member. Do we have a motion on the measure? Senator Strickland? Thank you. Senators Blakesley and Lowenthal, any questions? If not, we have a motion to pass by Senator Strickland. Please call the roll.
Senator Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye. Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Blakesley? Aye. Blakesley, aye. Hancock? Kehoe? Lowenthal? Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
4-0. You have sufficient votes, but we're going to hold the roll open for absent members. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have one more item, yes, and that is item number 10, AB 794.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I start, I'd like to accept the committee's amendments outlined in the committee analysis. And this bill is simple.
Assembly Member, before you present the bill, let me wade in on, well, forgive me. Why don't you go ahead and present the bill? We need a little discussion on the amendments because I think there's a little clarification that would be helpful to all parties about what the amendments do or don't entail. But why don't you go ahead and present the bill, and then we'll circle back on the amendments.
This is my waste, fraud, and abuse bill. So this is
for the record, the committee is against all of those things.
Right.
All right. So
this is a simple. This bill closes a loophole in the e-waste program. California has a great program that collects and recycles 1 billion pounds of covered e-waste. The Assembly Environmental Safety Committee held an oversight hearing earlier this year on the e-waste program, and one of the issues raised was the problem of fraudulent claims. The bill simply increases the enforcement authority for civil penalties for attempted fraud and strengthens the authority to review claims. There's a $25,000 penalty now for folks that do that. It's a. I do have Mr. Murray here to testify in support of the bill.
Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. Very briefly, we're in support of what we view as really added enforcement tool for CalRecycle to discourage collectors and recyclers of electronic waste from rolling the dice on trying to submit fraudulent claims by basically increasing the penalty for doing so. But it's always been a violation of existing law to provide false documentation, and recyclers wouldn't get paid if they provided that false documentation. This is putting a little bit more of a penalty in that as well.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support?
Hello, Monica Jansen with Sierra Club California in support.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Are there witnesses in opposition? Witnesses in opposition. All right, if not, then before we ask for a motion, Assembly Member, thank you for your willingness to accept as author's amendments the suggestions that are made in the staff analysis and in the comments. There is, however, looking at page 5, lines 22 through 27, where the amendments in part take place. Let me express what I think was the committee staff's concern, and then express my concern about their concern, and then express my desired outcome and see if it's your desired outcome as well. The language of the bill at present, in effect, says you get the civil liability if you make a false statement. Then the language on lines 22 through 27, in effect, says you don't get the fine for making a false statement if you've made, quote, verifiable and reasonable efforts to determine the source, so on and so forth. And the clear goal here, which I think is a good goal, is to say, you know, if you make the false statements, you're liable for the fine, but we don't want to ding you if you've made what is essentially a good faith effort to verify the information. there's just a drafting issue here, which is it doesn't say that if you lie, notwithstanding the fact that you've made a good faith effort to get the information and you still lie on purpose, that you're then liable for the fine. The staff recommendation is to eliminate that language, but the problem is if you eliminate the language, then you also eliminate the protection for folks who have in fact made a good faith effort. So all we're going to do is ask you to agree today that you'll work through in this committee with the staff and perhaps with legislative counsel the crafting of language that effectuates what I believe is your purpose, which is if you lie and you lie on purpose, then you're going to get the fine. If you've made a bona fide good faith effort to verify and the communication you provide is consistent with that bona fide good faith effort, then you are not liable to the fine. I think that's your intent. And I think that's if you agree to incorporate that in the author's amendments, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, I agree. You've characterized, it's not our intent here to
yeah. On the one hand,
create another loophole.
We don't want to create a loophole. On the other hand, we don't, by eliminating the loophole, want to eliminate the protection for people who act in good faith. That's the goal. All right? Then can we have a do-pass motion as amended from Senator Lowenthal? All right, Senator Strickland, as the champion of ending waste, fraud, and abuse, we're going to defer to you on that issue. So, all right.
Wasted fraud.
As amended, please call the roll.
Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Strickland. Aye. Strickland, aye. Blakesley. Blakesley, aye. Hancock. Kehoe. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
4-0. You have sufficient votes, but we're going to hold the roll open and look forward to working through the amendment language with you and your staff.
Look forward to testifying again.
Thank you very much, Senator. All right. Members, before we take up the next item, we're going to go back and pick up the items that were heard while we were acting as a subcommittee. The first is item number 2, AB 146 by Assemblymember Dickinson. Could we get a motion, a do-pass motion from member? Thank you. We have a motion by Senator Lowenthal. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended. Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Strickland. No. Strickland, no. Blakesley. Hancock. Kehoe. Lowenthal. Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
2-1. That measure is on call. Assemblymember Amiano had item number 3, which is AB 209. Motion by Senator Strickland. Please call the roll.
Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Strickland. Aye. Strickland, aye. Blakesley. Hancock. Kehoe. Lowenthal. Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
3-0. One more is required. We're going to hold the roll open for absent members. Members, once again, Senator Pavley is out of state representing us back in Washington, D.C. at a conference, so we are working with 6 members. And item number 1, AB 135, Hagman, and item number 12, AB 938 by Perez have been pulled from today's agenda. That takes us to Assemblymember Hill. Assemblymember?
What about the vote on AB 246?
Yes, and you've cast your vote on that. We're at 2-2 on that measure, and at 255 we're at 4-0. And then on the most recent one, 4-0. The vote is 4-0, but we're holding the roll open for absent members. Assemblymember, thanks for your patience. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I authored this bill for the second or third time, I can't remember, as a business owner because it will, in a small way, streamline CEQA and prevent agencies and businesses from being unnecessarily dragged into lawsuits. And as an environmentalist, I like it because it continues to protect CEQA. And as a legislator, I like it because it's just good public policy. AB 320 clarifies that the real parties in interest to be named in a California Environmental Quality Act lawsuit are those undertaking the publicly funded project or receiving the permit, as reflected in the agency's proceedings and identified in the notice of determination or the notice of exemption. Under current law, these real parties of interest must be noticed in a lawsuit against a CEQA approval. Unfortunately, in many cases, the entity bringing the lawsuit is unclear as to who these parties are. In some cases, project proponents use project managers who are designated as the project applicant, but are not always the actual recipient of the approval. This practice makes it extremely difficult, even for those who participated in the CEQA process, to know which parties must be included in a lawsuit or those who should not be. Failure to name all recipients of approval can lead to the case being thrown out, which is what occurred in the 2007 Court of Appeals case in Imperial County. To prevent important cases from being dismissed, CEQA practitioners have adopted to overname to serve parties who might or might not be considered indispensable to ensure that no one has been missed. This practice is a waste of time and money for everyone involved. AB 320 would eliminate the current inefficiencies by naming CEQA to clarify which parties must be named in litigation regarding a CEQA project. With me today, I think Jenna Price is here as well, and others to speak on behalf of this bill.
Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman and members, Bill Doring.
Go ahead, sorry.
My apologies. Jenna Price on behalf of the Planning and Conservation League. We do ask for your aye vote on this bill. AB 320 makes clarifying amendments to CEQA to ensure that all parties with a direct interest in a case brought pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act are aware of the pending litigation, and parties with no direct link to the case are not unnecessarily dragged into a lawsuit. AB 320 calls for lead agencies to list real parties of interest for a particular project in the agency's notice of exemption or the notice of determination. Under current law, these real parties of interest are the parties which must be notified of a lawsuit. Unfortunately, in many cases, those bringing the CEQA lawsuit do not know who exactly these parties are. However, if any of the parties of interest are not included in the lawsuit, the case can be thrown out completely, which has happened in several cases now. To prevent this from happening, CEQA practitioners are forced to name anyone and everyone they can think of in the lawsuit to ensure they have not missed anyone. This is extremely burdensome, and not only to the practitioners, who then have to remove people from the litigation once it is determined that they are not, in fact, real parties of interest, but it is naturally also burdensome to those being named. AB 320 will make clear who must be named in a lawsuit by asking the agency most familiar with who it is granting approval simply to list those recipients in the NOE or NOD. This clarity is especially important in CEQA cases, which have extremely short statutes of limitation. Cases must be filed with all the recipients of approval included in the filing within 30 days of project approval. This is often not enough time for the lead agency to hand over the entire administrative record to the case, which at least contains information to suggest that the entities might not be included. Similarly, in some cases, project applicants use project managers who are designated as project applicant. However, these project applicants are not always the actual recipient. Therefore, in some cases, it is extremely unclear, even as one participates in the CEQA process, to truly know who must be included in a CEQA lawsuit.
We say thank you for that testimony and go to your next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, Justin Malone on behalf of the California Eco Conservation Voters. This is the type of necessary change to CEQA we support. It makes, it removes some unnecessary burdens without compromising standing.
Thank you very much.
We urge your aye vote.
Any other witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman and members, Bill Doring representing Imperial County. The author and the witnesses have described it perfectly. So in the essence of time, move on.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hello, Monica Jansen with Sierra Club, California, in support.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Do we have witnesses in opposition? Witnesses in opposition. Assemblymember, the staff analysis indicates that there was opposition to the original version from the American Council of Engineering Companies. Are they still in opposition?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not.
Anybody here from that organization? All right. If not,
I think he changed the definition of recipient of approval, so I don't think they'd be in a position.
okay. The staff indicates that that previous amendments may have resolved that issue. Do we have a motion? We have a motion from Senator Lowenthal. Any closing comments?
Just respectfully ask your aye votes. Thank you, members. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Call the roll.
The motion is to pass to judiciary. Senator Smidian.
Aye.
Smidian, aye. Strickland. Strickland, no. Blakesley. Hancock. Kehoe. Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
Ayes 2, noes 1. You need 2 more, and we're going to hold the roll open for the absent members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Assembly.
Thank you, members.
Assemblymember Campos. AB 403, this is our agenda item number 7. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of this committee. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present on this bill. AB 403 will protect Californians and their right to
Assembly member, one moment, please. If we could ask the group over by the door to huddle outside rather than inside, please. Thanks. I want to make sure the Assembly member gets heard. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. AB 403 will protect Californians and give them the right to a safe drinking water in California. This bill simply asks that we finish the job started almost 10 years ago by this legislative body by holding the Department of Public Health accountable for establishing a drinking water standard for chromium-6. This bill also requires that the Department of Public Health report progress to their website. AB 403 in its current form represents the direct input from a wide range of stakeholders who help craft this language. This bill enjoys bipartisan support and did not receive a single no vote in the State Assembly. I would like to ask the witnesses that are here in support of it to introduce themselves and make some public comments.
Thank you very much, Assembly member. Witnesses in support would like to go first.
I will. I'm Jennifer West on behalf of the California Municipal Utilities Association. We are in support of the bill. I want to thank the author for the work she's done on it. We think this bill strikes a good balance between ensuring that the Chrome-6 scientific review be completed, and that also that the final MCL be adopted, and that it does not get hung up on Department of Finance extended review. So we think this strikes a good balance and it makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Rosie Thompson with Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. We'd like to thank the author and the staff for working with us on some of our issues of concern from when the bill was first introduced. As the bill was currently amended, which deletes the due date for DPH, we are in full support, and we ask the committee to support the bill as well.
Thank you again. Next witness.
Dana Nickel with Pete Conatee and Associates, representing the Water Quality Association and the Pacific Water Quality Association in support.
Thanks. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, Justin Malone on behalf of the local environmental health directors, very much in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, members, Monica Jansen with Sierra Club, California, in support.
Thank you.
Good morning. Zoe Lidstrom with the Planning and Conservation League, in support.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Witnesses in opposition. All right. Seeing none. Members, I don't think we have any amendments that have been suggested. The bill appears to be in good shape. We have a motion by Senator Strickland. Ms. Campos, any closing words?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and thank you for this time.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Senator Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye. Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Blakesley? Hancock? Kehoe? Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
3-0. You need 4. We'll hold the roll open for absent members.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Assemblymember Gordon, AB 525. And Assemblymember, I'm not sure what it says that the two of us were from the same region and we're both fascinated by rubberized asphalt concrete. What, just, you know.
Mr. Chair, I actually have 2 bills in front of you today, one about rubber and one about plastics.
All right, well, let's start with tire recycling.
Let's start with rubber.
AB 525.
This AB 525 reauthorizes until 2016 the successful rubberized asphalt concrete grant program. This program, administered by Cal Recycle, provides funding for the use of waste tires in public works projects in an effort to increase the amount of tires recycled throughout California. Funds for establishing this grant program are generated from the California Tire Recycling Management Fund. California generates more than 44 million used tires annually. While substantial efforts have been made to divert used tires from disposal, including tire recycling and the use of tire-derived fuel to generate energy, still nearly 11 million tires annually continue to be disposed in California. Recycled tires are the base for the rubberized asphalt concrete. The benefits of rubberized asphalt concrete are well known. It diverts millions of used tires from our landfills. It outperforms conventional asphalt in every manner. It is quieter, darker, allowing, therefore, lane strips to show up better. It's longer lasting, It drains better, and technical advances are making it easier to apply. Rubberized asphalt concrete represents one of the most promising and beneficial end uses for used tires. The Rubberized Asphalt Concrete Technology Center reports that a 2-inch rubberized asphalt concrete resurfacing project uses over 2,000 waste tires. Focusing a portion of the tire recycling funds on grants for local agencies for rubberized asphalt concrete projects represents useful and cost-effective means of both addressing California's waste tire problem as well as reducing the long-term cost of resurfacing and road building projects. I would respectfully urge an aye vote on this measure.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. I think that the evidence from the state agencies, both that build our roads as well as those that recycle our tires, demonstrate that rubberized asphalt, using rubberized asphalt is the highest and best use of these used tires. But sometimes in financing road building projects, a local government isn't looking at the whole life cycle of building that road. Instead, they're looking at, I've got a certain amount of dollars to build a certain amount of road. Having some amount of funding available to help offset that initial higher cost of using the rubberized asphalt is the purpose of this policy. I would point out just a slight correction in the analysis. This is only 16% of about half the funds that are set aside in the tire program. It's not 16% of the total tire fund. So it's actually about 8%, maybe a little less than that, of the total amount of funds that we spend to manage end-of-life tires goes to helping create incentives for the highest and best use of these tires. The analysis very astutely points out that maybe we want to rethink that percentage and that specific dollar amount and maybe have some discussion with CalRecycle if, given some of these additional end uses that are similar, if we might want to adjust that specific percentage going forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Terry Lavelle, representing CRM Company. We're the largest purveyor of crumb rubber in the state of California. We're strongly supportive of this bill, of course. And once again, like Mark says, we see this as an incentive for local governments to start using the product, even though in the life cycle, it does cost less, but up front it is more expensive. It's a great product, and
thank you.
We support it.
Before we take other witnesses, a question for either these witnesses, if they have the technical expertise, or someone else, or the author. There was reference to the fact that, and again, I'm a believer, I'm delighted to see the bill in committee. There was reference to the fact that there have been some advancements made in terms of ease of application. This was always the one issue that sort of was hanging out there in years gone by, which was that unlike conventional paving where you can pretty much just slather it down and go on your way, that a certain degree of care and attention to circumstances was required. What is the progress that's been made in application?
This is Terry Lavelle again. Currently, CalRecycle has got a contract looking at a warm mix asphalt that doesn't require the hot mix thing. It allows a little more flexibility in terms of the temperature variations when they're actually applying it. And then in recent years, CalRecycle has also allowed for the use of a terminal blend, which is a somewhat controversial application, but it allows for the use of this product that is actually manufactured at a terminal, at a one site, rather than bringing it out to the site on where the road project is going to be. So there's some progress being done, and of course Arizona, which is the leader state nationwide, is working on advances in this product as well.
Thank you very much. Witnesses, further witnesses in support.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco in support.
Thank you very much. Additional witnesses, your name, your organization, and your support or opposed position, please.
Monica Jansen with Sierra Club, California in support.
Thank you.
Justin Milan for the California Association of Environmental Health Administrators in support.
Thank you. Next witness.
Jordan Gomez, Planning and Conservation League in support.
Thanks.
Karen Keene on behalf of the California State Association of Counties in strong support.
Thank you very much. Still in support? Witnesses in opposition? Welcome.
Mr. Chairman and members, I'm Michael Hawkins. I'm here on behalf of the Rubber Manufacturers Association, representing the major tire manufacturers in the United States. The rubber manufacturers have an opposed, unless amended, position on the bill. I would also like to point out that the Department of Finance is opposed to the bill because they state it's unnecessary and would limit Cal Recycle's flexibility to respond to changing market conditions. We have taken the position that we don't believe this bill is necessary. Quite frankly, the bill is moving with a lot of speed. And so what we're recommending is that the bill be amended. Let me just read a couple sentences from the letter. The Rubber Manufacturers Association strongly...
One more, please. Just for the committee members, the letter arrived late, which is why it's not reflected in the packets. But please go right ahead.
And I apologize for that. I'm pinch hitting for one of my partners, and I took the assumption that it had been distributed, and when I found that it wasn't, I came to the consultant immediately, so I apologize for that.
Feel free to go ahead and testify.
The Rubber Manufacturers Association strongly urges an amendment to Public Resources Code 42701 to require local governments to consider life cycle analysis as part of the cost of utilizing RAC. Currently, PRC 42701 requires only the state to consider life cycle analysis as part of the cost effectiveness determination. If the state is going to grant money to local governments to use RAC, requiring localities to consider life cycle analysis will help create sustainable markets for RAC when the subsidy's in. So we're opposed to the bill unless it's amended that way, and I would strongly encourage the committee to take these amendments.
Assemblymember, would you like to respond?
Sure. Let me, first, in terms of the specific language of the amendment, I'm not sure that, from my perspective, that the amendment is necessary. I don't think it adds to this piece of legislation. The life cycle analysis is something that is well known and is looked at. I don't think that requiring an extra step really makes sense. The other argument made by the opponent regarding the Department of Finance comments that Cal Recycle could continue this program without this legislation, that's absolutely correct. But what this legislation does is it would direct Cal Recycle to continue this very worthwhile program. So rather than giving them that flexibility, the legislature would be determining that this is, at least until 2016, a valuable use as we continue to demonstrate the viability of this product and get more and more local governments engaged in its use.
Thank you. Senator Strickland?
Well, I come from the perspective, if the state requires it, and we all have heard testimony from the supporters saying that this is a good idea, why would we not require the locals to do what we've required the state to do? Correct me, I haven't got specific. Is that what you're trying to
That's correct.
accomplish?
If you read that section, it requires the Department of Transportation shall contract for those items that utilize recycled materials in paving, materials base and sub-base for the cost effectiveness of the materials. And subsection 1 in there is that the lifespan and durability of the pavement containing the materials, which makes sense because in this environment, when you think about local governments, they're making decisions based upon what costs the least amount for the shortest amount of time. And quite frankly, that is, penny wise and pound foolish. They can still do the analysis in Cal Recycle. It doesn't say that if the analysis turns out that it's a better product and they don't use it, they can still get the grant if they're going to use it. It just requires them to go through that process of determining what has the best life cycle.
And if we require the state to do it, and we all think that this is a good program, why would we not do the same thing for locals? And in our analysis, I don't know if it's in your analysis, it said this bill can actually harm rather than support scrap tire uses on public works projects. And if the goal is to look at the lifespan and use this technology in recycling, why would we not agree to this amendment?
Well, my own reaction is that the reason that the requirement is there is because we're talking about how we use funds that have been collected by the state, so that if the state is going to use the funds, the state makes the judgment wisely. But second-guessing how the local folks make that assessment is a function of how they're using their own local dollars when they're applying for the state funds as well. So it seems to me we've got the requirement in the right place, which is in a piece of legislation where we talk about how we're using funds collected by the state. We're talking about what the state's process is, but we're not second-guessing or imposing on every local jurisdiction a requirement in terms of how they do the calculation about using their own local funds. Assemblymember, have I got it more or less right?
No, I would agree. Chair, if I could respond.
Please do, Senator.
Through the chair. My understanding is we're allowing state monies to go, and that's why it's important, if the state thinks it's a good program, if we're using state funds for locals to tap into that, if we think it's a state program, that's why you would need it. I understand that you want locals to have the ability, but we're talking about state funds here on a program. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And we are requiring the state to go through that analysis, yes?
The state, but then the locals will be able to tap into those funds. So if the state thinks it's a good idea, why would we not do it for the locals?
Mr. Murray, you want to come forward and take a piece of this argument? Just, you know.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. I appreciate the discussion. With all due respect, this is trying to put a poison pill. These folks oppose this proposal. They're trying to put an additional burden on local governments so it makes it more difficult for them to get this grant money. Now, we were the ones that came up with the cost effectiveness analysis for Caltrans 10 years ago because Caltrans wasn't using rubberized asphalt. So we came up with it, and every single time Caltrans has done that analysis, it's demonstrated that the RAC has been more cost effective. So every single time they've done that. Now, for local governments to have to do this exact same analysis that the state's doing, that's just going to be a burden on local governments. And those local governments that weren't really excited about using the RAC anyway, this is going to be just one more burden for them to not use it. So just be clear, the folks that are advocating this are opposed to the requirement that these grants be provided to local governments. This is a poison pill intended to make it more difficult and more burdensome for local governments to try and do this, not something that's intended to promote the use of rubberized asphalt.
I'm going to give the opposition one more sentence, and then we're going to call it a day, just because I think the issue's been fully fleshed out for the committee.
Thank you. I would just like to respond to your comments. This is not a poison pill. This is a constructive amendment, and I personally take offense to that.
Gentlemen, through the chair, this is not a debating society for individual witnesses. This is an opportunity for witnesses to communicate to the committee their arguments for or against the bill. So let's please make sure that when the chair extends you the courtesy of further comment, that further comment is directed to that purpose. One last word, sir. Go right ahead.
My apologies to the chair. To the chair, this is not intended to be a poison pill amendment.
Thank you. All right. Assemblymember, any final words before we see if there's a motion in support of the bill?
I would just respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Motion by Lowenthal. Call the roll.
Senator Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Strickland? No. Strickland, no. Blakesley? Hancock? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
3-1. You need 4. We're going to hold the roll open for absent members. Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to your second and I believe final bill, which is item 16, AB 1149.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Senators, AB 1149 extends the sunset on California's successful plastic market development program. That sunset would be extended to 2017. And without new legislation, this provision of the Beverage Container Recycling Act will sunset at the end of this year. The Plastic Market Development Program was created in 2006 to develop markets for recycled empty plastic beverage containers. The program uses surplus redemption funds, money from beverage containers not recycled, to make payments of up to $150 per ton to California-based processors and manufacturers that recycle empty plastic beverage containers. While California's Plastic Market Development Program has succeeded in increasing California's processing and reuse of plastic in state, California continues to export in excess of 90% of the plastic collected for recycling. Program funding levels have been inconsistent and generally insufficient to provide the confidence and stability to the marketplace necessary to support private sector investments by potential California processors and manufacturers. Also, the prospect of program sunset has discouraged some investment. In 2010, Californians collected more than 250,000 tons of plastic beverage containers for recycling. Only 10% of this was recycled in California. 90% was sent overseas for processing and manufacturing. If we are able to refine and upgrade the Plastic Market Development Program by increasing the amount of grants offered, and we will increase California processing and manufacturing jobs. If we were to do increase by just 50% the amount of plastic recycled in California, we would create 3,500 to 4,000 new jobs statewide immediately. The more plastic processed and remanufactured in California, the greater the opportunity for creation of additional jobs. This bill creates two beneficial aspects for California. It recycles our plastic and it creates California jobs. I would respectfully urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. Very similar to the last proposal, this is one where we're taking a small percentage of beverage container recycling funds and using it to stimulate the highest and best use of these materials. As the author noted, 90% of the plastic that we've been collecting for recycling has been exported overseas to be remanufactured into new stuff. The economic value and the environmental value in terms of the greenhouse gas emission reductions occur when we're replacing the virgin raw materials with the recycled raw materials. This is a program, we're extending the sunset on this program. This is a program that has been demonstrated to be working, not just in terms of its environmental objectives, but its economic objectives. It has helped to stimulate demand for the material. It has helped to stimulate new California-based processing, manufacturing operations. We now have the opportunity to close the loop on plastic recycling here in California. Frankly, the only question with regard to the extension of this program is whether or not in the future there'll be sufficient funds to support the number of processing and manufacturing facilities in California that are being developed. We think that if savings can be identified in the beverage container recycling program in the future, that this would be one of the priorities, would be expanding this market development program, which has been demonstrated to be so successful. Urge your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, members, Ralph Chandler on behalf of Peninsula Plastics Recycling, Inc. of Turlock, California, and Peninsula Packaging Company of Exeter, California. Both companies have made considerable investment in building the recycling infrastructure here in California. Frankly, this is precisely the correct use of these surplus funds. It stimulates infrastructure in California for plastics recycling as opposed to seeing this material exported overseas. Both firms request your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good afternoon. Karen Keene on behalf of the California State Association of Counties, also in strong support of this bill.
Thank you.
Nicole Wortelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, also in support.
Thank you very much. Are there any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Any witnesses in opposition? If not, Assembly member, would you like to close?
We respectfully request an aye vote on AB 1149.
Do we have a motion, members? Motion by Lowenthal. No debate or discussion. Call the roll.
Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Strickland. Aye. Strickland, aye. Blakesley. Hancock. Kehoe. Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
4-0, that is sufficient, but we're going to hold the roll open so that absent members may add on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Assemblymember Williams, thank you for your patience. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members.
Good morning. Assemblymember, the one late-breaking request is for a delayed implementation date to July 1st, and the thinking here is that if the goal of the legislation is to affect behavior at the local level, giving folks some time to effectuate that change behavior might be helpful in actually achieving the goal. So is that acceptable to you?
I think that's a useful amendment, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
Thank you. And as long as you're prepared to take that amendment, would you be willing to accept the chair as a co-author on your good bill?
I sure would.
That'd be great. Thank you for that courtesy.
Thank you.
All right, let's ask you to go ahead and present the bill. This is agenda item number 9, AB 712, members.
Well, AB 712 prevents a local government from receiving state grants and recycling funding if they enforce policies that prevent the siting or operation of a recycling center at a supermarket site. current supermarkets, current law, supermarkets in California have to have either a recycling center or take the recycling in the store. The problem is that some local governments have been enforcing policies which prohibit placement of manned recycling facilities, largely for aesthetic reasons. They are usually termed in these laws just manned recycling facilities. This results in forcing a supermarket to take containers back in the store. And you can imagine the kind of problems that can take place from processing a huge amount of waste inside a supermarket right next to food. Grocers that attempt to do this face true challenges because there is very little space to be able to locate a recycling facility in store, and then you have the problem of contaminants and pathogens and food residue in containers that are not always completely empty and can attract rodents and pests. AB 712 rightly doesn't change a supermarket's responsibility to take containers back in store if there is no take-back center, but local governments shouldn't directly interfere with the supermarket's ability to comply with the law. If they choose to do so, the bill fairly prevents them from receiving bottle bill funding. So, in summary, I would characterize this as being something that helps supermarkets do their job and help them comply with the law and be able to increase recycling.
Great. Thank you very much. Witnesses in support.
Crystal Jack on behalf of the California Grocers Association in support. We believe that if you interfere with the beverage container recycling program, then you should not be eligible for the grants subject to that program. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great. Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman and members, Tony Gonzalez representing Tomra Pacific, one of the state's leading recyclers in the beverage container program. Very briefly, we do support the bill. One of the issues that we've encountered isn't so much that cities are enacting ordinances that ban manned recycling centers, but rather just simply tell you at the permit counter that that particular city doesn't allow manned recycling centers to be permitted to do business. So we feel that's objectionable, and we strongly support the bill.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support? Come forward quickly, please.
Zoe Lidstrom with the Planning and Conservation League in support.
Thanks very much. Are there any witnesses in opposition? Any witnesses in opposition? Third and final call. Any witnesses in opposition? If not, Senator Strickland. All right. Motion by Strickland. That's as amended. Comments or questions? Closing remarks?
Just respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Call a roll.
Senator Simitian?
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Strickland?
Aye.
Strickland, aye. Blakesley? Hancock? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
4-0. You have sufficient votes, but we're going to hold the roll open so that absent members may add on. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Assemblymember Gray, please join us. Who's up first here? Ms. Lowenthal, you are up first. Thank you. This is agenda item number 13, AB 960. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
AB 960 will help ensure the integrity of California's electronic waste program by requiring recyclers to demonstrate they are recycling all e-waste responsibly. Currently, we only pay them to recycle things like laptops, computer monitors, and televisions, which is known in that business as covered waste. That leaves out basically everything else, everything with a cord or a battery, the things that are known as non-covered products. As you know, cell phones, computer towers, DVD players, and the like. Unfortunately, the way some recyclers wring profit out of this stuff is by shipping it overseas where it is processed with little regard for the health of workers or the planet for that matter. That's not what the e-waste program was meant for, and we shouldn't let the bad actors profit by skirting our environmental laws and our worker standards. AB 960 requires recyclers in the program to demonstrate that any non-covered electronic waste they export is done so legally and according to international environmental standards. This will level the playing field and protect California jobs by ensuring that more e-waste is responsibly recycled here in California. I have with me Mr. Mark Murray, the Executive Director of Californians Against Waste, to testify in support of the bill.
Proving that you can recycle witnesses as well as e-waste, by the way. Mr. Murray, go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. I'll be brief. There was, some folks may remember, a series of articles in Sacramento Bee last year, which was appeared somewhat critical of California's e-waste recycling program. The problem that series of articles identified in terms of the export of electronics waste from California was not focused on the material that's covered by the law, but the other electronics that aren't covered by the law. This bill is aimed at addressing that problem that it was so helpful the Sacramento Bee to point out for us. Now, this bill is adding an additional responsibility on recyclers. Recyclers are not opposed to this measure. They want to make sure that this program is viewed positively by the public, and they're willing to do the right thing with regard to not just the covered electronics, but all the electronics that they handle. There was a late opposition from an association of appliance manufacturers. I'm going to focus on that, if I may. If there's questions about the actual substance of the bill, I'd be happy to answer those. I can understand why an appliance manufacturer may pay attention to this bill because there is a definition that includes appliances and may, if they're not familiar with California law, be concerned about this measure. However, this measure does not put any additional responsibilities on manufacturers, sellers, retailers of other appliances that aren't covered by the law. This bill uses a definition of electronic device that is taken directly from existing regulations. That definition is from DTSC's regulations regarding what is an electronic device, and that definition has a two-part test. It's an electronic device because it's an appliance. It's only regulated by this law if it exhibits the characteristics of toxicity or it's listed by DTSC as being a hazardous device. If appliances don't exhibit the characteristics of toxicity or they're not listed by DTSC, they have no additional responsibility under this law. But if I'm a recycler and I'm handling any kind of electronic device, whether it's an appliance or not, and it exhibits the characteristics of toxicity, I'm already required under existing law to manage that material in a certain way. I'm prohibited from disposing of that. That's existing law. What this is saying, in addition to that existing prohibition on disposal, it's saying that if you're a recycler and you want to get paid under this recycling program, additionally, you can't export that device for dismantling.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hello, good morning. Monica Jansen with Sierra Club California in support.
Thank you.
Jordan Gomez, Planning and Conservation League in support.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support. Are there witnesses in opposition? Witnesses in opposition. Third and final call. Witnesses in opposition? All right. If not, we'll bring the matter back to the committee. Are there questions from members of the committee on the bill?
Move the bill.
We have a motion by Senator Kehoe. Assemblymember Lowenthal, staff informs me that there may be a need at some point in the process for amendments to deal with chaptering out issues. And we just ask that you stay in touch with the committee staff and keep us informed.
Certainly.
If there are substantive amendments, obviously the committee always reserves the right to bring the bill back. But my understanding from staff is that we really, at this point, just anticipate that there may be some chaptering out issues that you'll want to address as the bill moves forward. Any closing remarks?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Call the roll.
Senator Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye. Strickland? No. Strickland, no. Blakesley? No. Blakesley, no. Hancock? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
3-2. You need 4. And we'll hold the roll open for absent
members.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Now, Assemblymember, come right up. Welcome. I believe you are here on
983.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 983 is part of the Human Right to Water package that provides California's most disadvantaged communities the access to fund sustainable, safe drinking water projects. Specifically, the bill does three things. Number one, it allows severely disadvantaged communities to be eligible for grants up to 100% of the project costs. Second, it also gives priority to projects that consolidate with small water systems. And lastly, it establishes a payment process which the Department of Public Health must pay recipient funds within the 30-day period that the department receives payment. Without these modifications, disadvantaged communities in California will be denied access to safe drinking water. In 2006, the State Water Resource Control Board found that 40% of domestic wells tested in Tulare County, which I represent, had nitrate levels above the legal limit. Exposure to high nitrate levels can result in serious illness and death for infants and pregnant women. Child and adult illnesses include cancers of the digestive system, bladder, and thyroid. Currently, severely disadvantaged communities are not able to finance safe drinking water projects because these communities still cannot finance the 20% of the project up front, making the poorest communities ineligible for grant funding. This bill would provide California's most disadvantaged communities the right to access the funding for long-term safe drinking water projects. This bill has passed through the Assembly with no votes, and there is no registered opposition to the bill. I have with me today Debbie Davis from the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water and Brian Augusta from the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Davis with the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water, and I'll be brief and just address two potential concerns. The first being the health of the fund. This is a loan fund, but only up to 30% of the fund is allowed to be granted out, direct grants to communities. So we're really talking about that 30% of the fund, and this bill does not change that. So the general health of the fund stays the same into the future. What this bill does do is it would allow within that 30% of grant fund dollars that goes out, it would allow those funds to be used to provide 100% grant instead of an 80% grant to severely disadvantaged communities. And I want to be clear, those are communities that have a median household income that's 60% or less of the statewide median household income. So these are very poor communities that simply can't afford to raise their rates in order to fund that 20% match. And so they're literally being denied access to safe drinking water because they can't afford it. And so what this will mean is within that 30% of grant dollars that goes out, that prioritize communities, the bottom communities on that priority list might not get a grant in a particular year, but they stay on the priority list, they continue to move up the priority list, and in a subsequent year, they're likely to receive their grant. And so it sort of reorganizes the total distribution of that 30%. But we believe this is an important element of how we work this drinking water program to make sure that those that need it the most get access. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Brian Augusta on behalf of the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation. There are hundreds of communities throughout our state, disadvantaged communities in need of water improvements that, as Debbie has described, cannot access the fund because of the match requirements. We think this program would ensure the flexibility to really target down to those neediest communities and solve this very severe public health problem that exists throughout California. We think it's a reasonable balance, one that we believe the department can implement in a way that preserves the long-term health of the fund and also at the same time gets needed money to our poorest communities. So for those reasons, we would urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Additional witnesses in support. And we're doing okay on time, so a sentence or two if you like, but please try and limit it to that.
Chair, members, Rachel O'Brien on behalf of the California League of Conservation Voters. We would like to associate ourselves with my associates' comments and just thank the author for bringing this important.
It's okay to thank the chair.
I always thanking the chair.
Never hurts.
Well, I'd love to thank the author as well for bringing this important measure forward.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Hello, Monica Jansen with Sierra Club California in support.
Thanks.
I'm Reverend Lindy Ramsden, Executive Director and Senior Minister with the Unitarian Universalist Legislative Ministry Action Network. We are in support and bring 1,103 letters from constituents around the state encouraging your support for this bill because it's part of the Human Right to Water bill package. So these are letters in support of that.
Thank you very much. And if you hand them to the Sergeant at Arms, who will be right back, he will get them to the committee. Next witness.
Good morning. Zoe Lidstrom with the Planning and Conservation League in support.
Thanks so much. Next witness.
Shana Miners on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, a national human rights organization, and co-sponsor the bill. I ask you to support this bill and all the bills in the Human Right to Water package because all Californians should have access to safe drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness. Any other witnesses in support? Do we have any witnesses in opposition? We have a motion by Senator Kehoe. Someone remember the one issue that's raised, I think, that I'd like to ask you just to speak to for a moment or two is obviously the larger the grants, the fewer grant recipients because you're reducing the available and obviously limited pool. What's your take on that issue? If you could share that with us, I think it'd be helpful.
Well, I think the important language to note is that the grants can be up to 100%. So while today it is up to 80%, the administrators can still say, well, maybe we want to do 90%, maybe we want to do 85%. So there's still discretion for the department to be able to work within their budget to make sure that that issue does not occur. But what this language does, it allows up to 100%. So those communities that are severely disadvantaged and meet all the requirements can make their case through their application.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the committee? If not, we have a motion on the floor. Final comments from you, Assembly Member?
Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Senator Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye. Strickland? Aye. Strickland, aye. Blakesley? Blakesley, aye. Hancock? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
5-0. You have sufficient votes, but we're going to hold the roll open so that absent members may add on. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Senators.
And Assembly Member / Senator Chesbro, I understand you're here for Speaker Perez's bill. Is that correct, sir? Welcome. Thank you so much. This is item number 15 on our agenda, members. It's AB 1019. And Mr. Chesbro, we welcome you and happy to have you present.
Well, happy Monday morning to you. Mr. Chair and members, AB 1019 is cleanup legislation to a bill the Speaker carried last year, AB 2398, which established a statewide program to collect and recycle waste carpet. AB 2398 was supported by the carpet industry and was signed into law. State buildings are a major generator of waste carpet. For that reason, last year's bill required the Department of General Services to manage waste carpet in state buildings in a manner consistent with the new law. This bill clarifies that DGS must meet this requirement by January 1st, 2014. This date is 20 months after carpet manufacturers are required to implement their plans to increase collection and recycling waste carpets. I'm sure we would all agree that the state, as well as the private sector, should comply with state recycling rules. That's the purpose of AB 1019. The bill has no opposition.
Thank you. Are there witnesses in support?
Chair, members, Rachel O'Brien again on behalf of the U.S. Green Building Council as well as the California League of Conservation Voters. We are in support of this measure.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Randy Pollock on behalf of the Carpet and Rug Institute in support.
Thanks.
Nicole Wortelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco. The City and County has numerous state buildings which this legislation will assist.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in support. Are there witnesses in opposition? Any witnesses in opposition? Third and final call. Witnesses in opposition? If not, Senator Lowenthal.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the bill, but it seems to me that the bill is not in its final form at this moment, that it may go through. And I just want to ensure that if it does go through some major revisions, it comes back to the committee.
All right. Well, I know that Senator Chesbro knows how that process works and that the committee always retains jurisdiction.
Right,
so
but I'm just saying
we'll surface publicly the fact that if there are substantive amendments to the bill as it moves forward, the committee will retain jurisdiction and may well call the bill back to committee. Okay. Understood.
Well, it's one of those moments when you can vote for the industry and for the environment at the same time. I would urge your aye vote.
There you go. Do we have a motion?
Move the bill.
Motion by Lowenthal. Please call the roll.
Senator Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye. Strickland? Strickland, no. Blakesley? Hancock. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
3-1, 4 are required. We're going to hold the roll open for absent members.
Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Chairman. Members?
Thank you. I'm going to go with Assemblymember Bradford, and I'm sure Assemblymember Fuhr will understand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the promotion. I'm here to present AB 1180, once-through cooling. As you know, last year the State Water Resources Board adopted a statewide policy that phases out the use of once-through cooling on coastal power plants throughout the state in order to reduce adverse impacts to coastal marine life. The Water Board established a timeline of compliance for each of the 19 power plants for this effective policy, ranging from December 2010 to July 2035. Several of the facilities are fast approaching the deadline, and concerns of the short timeline might have severe impacts on rates. As chair of the Utilities and Commerce Committee, I've been very mindful in watching potential rate impacts. So that's pretty much why I have brought this bill forward today, to hopefully safeguard the potentials of rate impacts. AB 1180 simply requires the State Water Board to consider recommendations and make changes if the appropriate once-through cooling policy at their next scheduled public hearing meeting after July 1, 2012. The process is already in place. They're already doing their evaluations. We're just asking for them to come with a definitive answer. With me to speak in support is Alex Esperanza on behalf of the Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa of Los Angeles, and John Constantino representing the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. I respectfully ask for aye vote.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Chair, members. Alex Esparza on behalf of Mayor Villaraigosa here in support of the bill. We appreciate the author's efforts on this issue that's very important to our region. Thank you.
Thank you. Tell the mayor he did a nice job on Meet the Press, by the way. Next witness.
John Costantino on behalf of the LA Chamber in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition before we go to committee members? Witnesses in opposition? Third and final call. Witnesses in opposition. I'm going to go to Senator Lowenthal first, and then to Senator Kehoe.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the bill because the bill requires that the State Water Resources Board consider. What happens if they don't consider it, or if they consider it and they don't support it? Will we be seeing another bill?
It's not my intentions. We're waiting for the July 19th deadline, and if they determine that the process is in place and the deadlines are firm, I mean, that's where we are. It's not my intentions to morph this into anything else at this point.
So you just really want to expedite that they do it at this date?
Without a doubt.
And you're not saying that you're going to potentially come back with another bill?
That's not my intentions.
Senator Kehoe.
Thank you. That was my question as well. My notes here say that you're trying to keep people at the table to make sure that the process goes forward. But now there's also a hearing scheduled for when? July?
Yes.
Sometime.
19th.
And you feel, are you doubting whether it'll be productive, or, you know?
We're hoping. I mean, we saw signals at the end of last year that the Water Resource Board was ready to make a decision here. So now, hopefully, they've had additional 6 months to look at this. So hopefully, they'll come with a conclusion, and that's favorable to everybody that's involved.
Back to Senator. I'm sorry.
I would, I'm happy to help you keep the bill moving, and I too would like to, I'll pay close attention to it. I think it is actually key fiscal. So just to make sure that your impetus to get the stakeholders to a faster process is what's happening with the bill.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Lowenthal?
Yeah, just as I said earlier on a previous bill, I support this bill, but this bill could change dramatically. And I just want to say that as a member, I'm voting with it with the understanding that if it does, just as the chair always does, but I want to make it public, that I would hope that this bill would come back to committee.
Senators Kehoe and Lowenthal and other members as well. Would you be more comfortable if the commitment was made today that we will bring the bill back, just so so you know it comes back if there are amendments?
It's fine with me. I mean, I'm supportive of the bill, but I just think, and I'm not sure where it will go, but it could morph into something else. And I just want to have an option to hear it. And
just it's a committee's prerogative, but I don't know that that's necessary. I mean, you have very good
we
staff.
trust you.
No, thank you.
If there's significant changes, the committee should bring it back, but it doesn't have to. If it stays the way it is, it doesn't have to come back.
That's
in my opinion.
And I agree.
Good. All right. Well, I think, Assembly Member Everett, you're to be commended for trying to keep up with what can only be described as a changing and dynamic process. That's probably the kindest way to describe it. As has been referenced, it's clear members have concerns that if the bill needs to change because of changes in the context in which the bill was introduced, then the committee always reserves the right to bring the bill back. But good for you for trying to keep the conversation going. Do we have a motion on the bill? Motion by Lowenthal. Call the roll.
Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Strickland. Aye. Strickland, aye. Blakesley. Aye. Blakesley, aye. Hancock. Aye. Hancock, aye. Kehoe. Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
6-0. That bill is out. Ms. Pavley is absent today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee
Thank
members.
You. Mr. Shearer, you have our final bill today, I believe. Agenda item number 11, AB 913. Please present.
And perhaps the briefest presentation of the morning as well. So this is a bill that has bipartisan support, no opposition, strong business community support, the essence of which is that we're going to enhance a California certifying green business program to build on the framework that exists among local governments, create some standardization, and provide small businesses that want to with the resources that they need to get certified and do two things at once: help the bottom line and promote what we all want, which is environmental efficiency and stewardship. I urge an aye vote.
Witnesses in support.
Yes. Good morning, Chair Simitian and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of AB 913. My name is Seal Scandone. I work for the Association of Bay Area Governments as the regional coordinator for the Bay Area Green Business Program.
If you could pull that microphone just a little closer, please. Thank you.
Our program, our region, has 9 counties that participate, and we are founding members of the California Green Business Network. AB 913 would provide a strong foundation for the establishment of local programs throughout California and send a clear message to businesses and consumers about the value of becoming a green business. We were developed 15 years ago, and there are now 15 local programs throughout the state. More than 3,000 businesses have been certified. We were the first in the country to combine regulatory compliance with comprehensive beyond compliance standards. We bring together agencies and utilities that serve and regulate businesses, and our partners make site visits to verify that the businesses meet our standards, and this would assure the state that participating businesses deserve the recognition they receive. Thanks to funding from the Department of Toxic Substances Control, we now have a statewide system that collects data about the environmental value of what our businesses are contributing to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and meeting conservation, waste reduction, and pollution prevention goals. AB 913 will strengthen the existing network, and it will encourage other California communities to offer the program. Using this proven model is an efficient use of government resources.
Thank you. For being called to the floor, I want to try and hear this bill and then go through the roll. So I'm going to ask the witnesses to be brief given the lack of opposition. Next witness.
Hello, my name is Anna Frankel. I work for the Department of Environment of the City and County of San Francisco and for the San Francisco Green Business Program. And I just want to say that the San Francisco Green Business Program did conduct a preliminary study of 39 recognized green businesses and found that they were able to save 67,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year.
And I'm going to say thank you for your testimony, and we owe you 2 minutes the next time you're here, all right?
Good. Cool.
Going back to the author.
Urge an aye vote.
Any other witnesses in support? Briefly, please. Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? If not, we've a motion from Senator Lowenthal. Call the roll.
Senator Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye. Strickland? Strickland, no. Blakesley? Blakesley, aye. Hancock? Hancock, aye. Kehoe? Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
5-1, the bill is out.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. And thank you to the witnesses for understanding that we got a little jammed on time. I know you've come a long way, and we do. We owe you 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, members, we're going to try and go quickly through the measures that remain on call so that all members can vote on all items. And let's call the roll, starting with the first item, which is agenda item number 2. Senator Lowenthal?
I believe I voted on everything.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, Senator.
Mm-hmm.
You're a pillar of the committee, sir. Thank you. Call the roll.
AB 146, the motion is due pass as amended. Vote was 2-1. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senator Blakesley? Hancock? Kehoe?
Item 1.
Item number 2.
2. AB 146.
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Hancock, aye.
Final vote is?
4-1.
That bill is out. Next item.
Item 3, AB 209. Current vote is 3-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. The motion is due pass. Senators Blakesley? Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Pavley? 5-0.
5-0. That bill is out.
Item 4, AB 246, Wachowski. The motion is due pass to judiciary. Current vote 2-2. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senators Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Pavley? 4-2.
4-2. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 5, AB 255, Wachowski. Motion is due pass. Current vote 4-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senators Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Pavley? 6-0.
That bill is out. 6-0. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 6, AB 320 Hill. The motion is due pass to judiciary. Current vote is 2-1. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senators Blakesley? Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Pavley? The vote is 4-1.
4-1. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 7, AB 403 Campos. The motion is due pass. Current vote 3-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Blakesley? Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Pavley? The vote is 5-0.
5-0. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 8, AB 525 Gordon. Motion is due pass. Current vote 3-1. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senators Blakesley? Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Pavley? Vote is 4-1.
4-1. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 9, AB 712 Williams. The motion is due pass as amended. Current vote is 4-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senators Blakesley? Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Pavley? The vote is 5-0.
5-0. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 10, AB 794 Wachowski. The motion is due pass as amended. Current vote is 4-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senators Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Pavley? The vote is 6-0.
Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
6-0.
6-0. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 13, AB 960 Lowenthal. The motion is due pass. Current vote 3-2. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senators Hancock? Aye. Pavley? The vote is 4-2.
4-2. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 14, AB 983 Perea, due pass. Current vote is 5-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Pavley? 6-0.
6-0. That bill is out. Next item.
Item 15, AB 1019 Perez, due pass. Current vote is 3-1. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senators Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. 4-1.
4-1. That bill is out.
Item 16, AB 1149 Gordon, Do pass. Current vote 4-0. Chair aye, Vice Chair aye. Senators Blakesley, Hancock, Hancock aye. 5-0.
5-0. That bill is out. I believe that is our final item remaining on call. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, committee members.